Mhm. There's Mr. Lowell. So John's not going to be here tonight, correct?
Yep, John will not be here and Leslie will not be here.
Okay, great. So we have got everyone and we're ready to roll, right? No? Yeah.
I think so.
Joe's hiding behind John.
Yes,
When that is.
just a quick tribute to the man.
A well-deserved tribute.
Yeah, I genuflect for a second.
Yeah, it's a great picture, but when I first looked at it, I thought it was some type of arcane fraternal ritual that was occurring there at the moment.
I made him a boxing robe, and so on the chest it said commish, and on the back said John McLaughlin.
I was there for it. It was a beautiful
Oh,
tribute.
that's right.
No, it's okay. It's good.
Good stuff. All right, everybody. Welcome to the planning board meeting Monday, August 14th. The board, I am sure, wishes Miss Leslie Snell a happy birthday today. We are using Zoom for this meeting, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. The chair can request members of the public to provide their names for the purpose of keeping accurate meeting records. Attendees must register to participate. The registration link is unique to the meeting. Registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket TV YouTube feed for the meeting. Attendees will join in listen mode. They can click and raise their hand if they wish to speak. The chair will call on those who have raised their hands in the order they were raised. All questions should be directed through the chair. As a preliminary matter, I'm David Iverson, the chair of the planning board. Permit me to confirm the members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Board members, Barry,
Present.
Joe,
Present.
Nat,
Present.
alternates Abby,
Here.
and Steve Welch.
Here.
Staff members, Megan Trudell,
Here.
Billy Saad,
Here.
Catherine Acerno,
Here.
Mike Burns.
Good evening.
Good evening. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Great. So, look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, sir.
Second.
Moved by Barry, second by Nat. Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion that, not hearing any errors or corrections, that we approve the minutes for June 8th and July 10th.
Second.
Joe?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. On to second dwellings. Anyone have any that they need to pull out?
Mhm.
Okay, so we have Donald and Joanne Hart at 2 Gloucester Street, Laura and Jan Hedrick at 10 Everett Lane, Hallett Lane LLC at 12 Almanac Pond Road, Elizabeth Gennaro and Kit Noble at 18 Daffodil, 63 Hulbert Avenue LLC at 63 Hulbert Avenue, Orla Table at 54 Skyline Drive, and Margaret A. Owen at 16 Gulf View. Do we want to add the garage apartments and tertiary on this? Okay,
Please.
so for garage apartments, we have Justin Brooks at 15A Korea Lane. We have Shimano Property LLC at 14 Shimano Bike in the Brain, Shimo Road, Pond Road, and a tertiary dwelling at Model Home Realty 8 4th Way. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion made by Joe, seconded by Barry. Joe,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm an I as well. On the ANRs, we're gonna pull out David Beaumont at 35 Warrant Landing Road to after the public hearing.
Mhm.
So
And I'm
that,
gonna recuse from Ceylon Elves LLC Wise Way.
okay, so we'll pull that one out as well. So that leaves us with Seascape 2 Realty at 25 Novadear Ave, Almost There LLC at 64 Holbert Ave, Daniel Stobie and Charles Dorset at 57 Washington Street. I'm sorry, 57 Wall Street, 58 and 60 Holbert Avenue, 59 Pocheck Avenue LLC at 59 Pocheck, PM Reese Trucking Inc. at 10 Green Meadows, Richmond Great Point Properties LLC at 57 Old South Road. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we endorse those documents in accordance with the staff report.
I'll second that.
All right, great. Motion made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Joe. I saw your mouth move, but,
Aye, sorry.
and I'm an I as well. Do I need to appoint someone here for the Ceylon Elves with Joe recusing?
No, sir.
No, only the 5 members are now 4 that are left may vote on ANRs.
There's not 4 left though.
Oh, sorry, all we need is 3.
Okay,
Yeah, we need 3 for the approval on these, so that's fine.
okay,
That's on here.
all right. So Ceylon Elves LLC Wires Way. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we endorse the plan.
Second.
Made by Barry, seconded by Nat. Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm an I as well. All right, we are on to preliminary plans. ACREIT 1865 LLC 9 Hinsdale Road.
So I brought Paul Santos over to represent this application.
Okay.
Hey,
Thank you,
Paul,
Megan. Thank you, Megan. Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors on behalf of the property owner, ACREIT 165 LLC. As you just mentioned, this is a application for a preliminary plan for a property located at number 9 Hinsdale Road. This is a older subdivision off of Old South Road. The board has recently approved a few lots at the intersection of Old South and Forest Avenue. That is essentially the entry into this subdivision area. It's an area that is currently zoned RC2. It's a mix of some single-family homes and some commercial businesses scattered throughout the subdivision. The application before you is for a 3-lot subdivision with a proposed lot encompassing, which would encompass a new roadway. You would have 2 lots at the intersection of Hinsdale Road and the proposed roadway, and then 1 internal lot at the end of the proposed roadway. Lots would vary in size anywhere from approximately 5,000 square feet, which is the minimum, to the bigger lot, which is just in excess of 7,000 square feet. Subdivision itself does not contain, or the lot itself does not contain any resource areas that would require approval from the Conservation Commission. It's not in a flood zone, and it has public water, public sewer available to it, and all the utilities would be connected via an underground system that presently exists within the subdivision. It is a commercial property in nature, so by statute, it does require a preliminary plan to be filed. Our intent would be to file the definitive plan within short order, thereby moving forward, potentially protecting the RC2 zoning for a period of approximately 8 years. And that would be allowed, provided a preliminary plan was filed within 7 months, a definitive plan was filed, and then ultimately endorsed by the board. The owner is still looking at kind of some of the options here, but I will tell you that the intent here is essentially for lot 1 and 2 to contain housing. And then potentially lot 3 would be some type of use for the backside. Currently, duplexes are allowed by right in the RC2 zoning district. And with regard to potential for the back area, something along the line is a contractor shop or a landscaping contract or something along those lines currently require a special permit in the RC2 district. But that's kind of, not that it so much has an effect on the preliminary plan, but that's kind of what we're kind of looking at this point. So potential housing on the front lots to service that need for the owner, and then a potential commercial or contractor type of use on the back lot. And that's basically what the proposal is. It's a smaller 20-foot wide access road. So we would be seeking waivers with regard to the subdivision control law on the 40-foot wide road, the hammerhead, similar to, kind of some of these subdivisions that we've seen. The board has looked at favorably in the past. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Questions from the board? Barry?
Yeah, I've got a few things. And through you to Megan. Does Hinsdale need further improvements that we should be thinking about here? That I've got a few questions, so that'll be the first one.
So this portion of Hinsdale would not, this is the paved portion by Forest Ave, not the dirt portion connecting to Nobodere Farm that would. So I think for this particular application, I mean, obviously subject to Ed Pesci review, but just eyeballing it, I think this portion of Hinsdale is in pretty good shape.
Okay, good. So, and I'll ask you another question, the hammerhead versus, I thought we were trying to get away from hammerheads. Or are we good here with this?
I mean, I think that's something you can include as a recommendation in the preliminary plan and hash those kind of details out when it actually moves forward with the AR definitive subdivision.
Okay, so we should put something that in there that basically says we'll think about it, but it's really not a preferred choice of terminating the roadway system. Yeah, no, I realized since we're into a preliminary plan, this is exactly what it is. It's just throwing out our thoughts in the process. Needless to say, if lot number 3 is going to be turned into a commercial, it's going to be important that we get a much better look at it in terms of what it is all going to be, and anything that would be associated with a new commercial use. So what's going in there, how it's going to operate, hours of operation, again, too, that will all kind of tie back into requesting a waiver, from 40 feet down to 20 feet on that, depending upon the intensity of the use. What else did I want to say? The street itself is gonna have to be marked off as no parking on either side of it. I think somewhere we're gonna probably want a sidewalk on at least one side of the street. Just so that again, there's just a different way to access things. What else did I want to say? And the other question is going to be is on the dwelling units themselves. I think we're going to want some more information about what it is, whether they're going to be, individual up to secondary and tertiaries. But we definitely are going to need some more insight into that as well, too, I think, to be able to make a better sense and feel of this thing. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Barry. Any other board members? Is that just a sigh, Mr. Lowell?
A little bit, just a small one this time. Just a quick, I mean, to follow up on what Barry said, and it's a preliminary plan, I get that, the hammerhead, the circle. To Paul Santos, I mean, if that back lot, which is 2,000 square feet bigger than the others, for obvious, there must be a reason for that. You have to get fire department to look at this as far as like how would the road enter into that property? It doesn't necessarily need a hammerhead or a circle, but we have to get fire department approval for that one way or the other. So, not to waste land with just a circle for no reason. I mean, I think that's what sort of Barry's saying. So that's how I would leave that. And that back lot is going to be the question. And I see you want the road to not be paved. You want it to be gravel. 16 feet of traveled way. Is that what you have planned?
Again, that for the preliminary, that's correct. That's what's on the plan right now.
Okay, because you'll run out of land. You have to take it off the back if you go wider for the layout. So you run out of square footage. So, I mean, that's fine. I just wanted to just throw that at you as far as like whatever's going to happen in the back doesn't necessarily have to be. Well, actually, no, it does because of the frontage, right? It does have to have that circle or hammerhead. I wasn't thinking about the actual functionality part of it. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Nat. Joe?
I'm just an echo. I agree with what Barry and Nat have said.
I am in agreement too. Paul, this is in the Wellhead Recharge District and the harbor area too.
That is correct. Lots located in DEP Zone 2 Wellhead Protection,
Okay.
Nantucket Harbor Watershed Protection Zone B, and the Nantucket Public Wellhead Recharge District.
So we just want to be conscious of the use of that back lot is
Yeah.
thank
So,
you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one more question through you?
Please, Nat.
Megan and Paul, they both will know. Is it a real lot not allowed in RC2?
I believe that's correct, Art. I mean,
That's
that's correct.
That is
I
correct.
just ran into this earlier with another place I'm looking at on our agenda, and I didn't realize that some of the subdivision, some of the zoning districts don't allow it. Okay, thank you.
And the reason is because RC2 is something that is being phased out. So
Mhm.
we don't want to incentivize development in areas where that district is being phased out when it may, that may not be appropriate as it turns out for that particular location. So that's the reason why RC2 and R1 are not included in covenant lots or in rear lot subdivisions.
Thanks. Barry?
Yeah, Megan, could you do me a favor and just bring the map back up for a second, or Paul, either of one of the two? I just want to look at one more thing, which just came to mind. Please.
Yeah. There we go.
All right, now I just wanted to see what was on the backside of the property to see, sometimes we miss things like, pedestrian easements or, potential easements into the future, but I don't see any opportunities here on anything, on any of the four sides that are there. So thanks. I just wanted to take another peek at it just to make sure.
Great.
Okay.
All righty, what's the board's pleasure here?
I'd make a motion at this, but let me just ask a question first. Paul, do you feel like you've got good information to be able to follow through with this? And where
Oh,
we're
sure.
trying to-
The purpose of the preliminary plan is, this is perfect.
Okay, great. And
Yep.
Megan, I forget what this, do we usually draft out a letter?
Yeah, I draft and signed a letter, just kind of summarizing what you all have discussed.
And-
And provide Paul with a copy of that.
Perfect. So that's my motion at this point, is to allow staff to draft a letter based upon our conversation today with Mr. Santos.
Right, second?
Second.
All right, great. Motion made by Barry, seconded by Nat. Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Thanks, Paul. I'm sure we'll
Thank
see
you. Thanks, everyone.
you again tonight. On the previous plans, 9 Nantucket Road subdivision endorsement plan.
So this is just an endorsement of the previously approved AR subdivision. Dan has made all of the necessary changes that were recommended by Ed Pesci, so we are now ready for you all to endorse those plans.
Great, thank you. Board have any questions?
Mhm.
All right, what is the board's pleasure?
Motion to endorse.
Second.
All right, I'll give that to Barry. Motion made by Joe, seconded by Barry. Joe,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
I'm gonna be consistent and vote no on this one.
Child.
Still carries, correct?
Mhm.
All right, next one, is for release of escrow, Lori Gaddis, 13 Evergreen Way.
So
Mary?
if you recall, this initially was brought forward as an AR definitive subdivision. It was subsequently converted to a rear lot subdivision. So the applicant is just requesting that those engineering escrow funds be returned, which we would fully support since the AR definitive subdivision is closed out.
Great, thank you. Board,
Motion to release the funds.
Second.
motion made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay, on to public hearings. This is going way too quick. I think we should,
No. Everything's fine.
they just curse us. Okay, so we have Westmore, 105 Westchester, which is a requested to continue. We have 41 WMR Trust, 41 West Myacomet Avenue that is requested to continue. We have Nantucket Old South Road LLC, 33 Old South Road has requested to continue. And Calnan trustee John L. Cannon, 205, 2015 Trust 21 Brewster Road has requested to continue. So I think we can vote these as a block.
Mhm. I'll make a motion. We continue these to our next meeting in September 11th.
Thank
I'll
you. Barry.
second.
Motion made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Next is AC Mid Island LLC and AC Offices LLC, 1818A 2022 2426 Sparks Avenue. I guess we're here for an update, correct, Megan?
That's correct. I've just brought over Dan Malloy and Chris Fumara.
Great, welcome Dan and Chris.
Afternoon. So I'll make this quick and then obviously answer any questions. So It's been a while since we've been before you. We've been going back and forth, as you're aware, with the abutters to try to work out easements and agreements for access and shared driveways. So the good news is, we have an agreement in place with the house fitters property at 16 Sparks Ave for the shared driveway. That is in place and we are done there. The bad news is we were not able to get an agreement in place with the owners of the Cumberland Farms property, which is why we're here tonight. That's the main focus of this presentation. So because of that, we have made a change to the plan, which I'm assuming everybody has probably seen at this point. Yep, okay, so what we're proposing now, so Cumberland Farms, the owners of that property, like I said, we couldn't reach terms with them. So we've effectively cut that driveway out of the equation. And so now what you're seeing, abutting Cumberland Farms, you have a one-way driveway entrance. And then the two-way side stays the same on the 16 Sparks side to the right. So the main plan change is a one-way driveway entrance adjacent to the Cumberland Farms property. And what you'll see as you come into the property, in the interest of trying to keep traffic moving, you'll see what essentially looks and functions like a small rotary. So that people coming in the two-way side can come into the parking lot, park, or if they can't find a space, need to turn around, they can turn around without doing the typical, 5-point turn to the back end of a parking lot. So what that effectively does, it allows vehicles, trucks, fire trucks, everybody to access this site from both directions. It allows trucks to come in from the left side of the plan, make it around the turning circle. It would be cobbled, maybe with a tree in the middle, but the turning movements allow vehicles to move completely around the property, throughout the property, the trucks, the fire trucks, and everything else. In doing so, we've lost, without the shared driveway, we lost parking spaces. So effectively, we've lost 10 spaces in this interim without having a shared driveway. So that effectively knocks us down. We're still, with the credits we were looking for with the parking, it still leaves us with a surplus of 6. So I think from the parking credits we've already looked at, I think we're doing okay. The balance of the plan, the proposed use, everything essentially is the same. Everything in the back of the property, everything on the right of the property is the same. The building itself, the physical footprint is somewhat in flux. It's going to look something like this. However, it's into HDC right now, and I believe it's still waiting to be heard at their first meeting. Could be as possibly this week or next week, I believe. So they're in, waiting to be heard. There's also, for what it's worth this time, we did get an email from the Affordable Housing Trust noting their interest in working with us to get some affordable units in here. Just want to make sure that's clear. So we are actually working with them to try to get that in place. So that's definitely happening. There's been a traffic review done. I think there's a preliminary email in from the traffic consultant. Nothing major to report there. There's little things we still need to work out, like bike racks and maybe moving some handicap spaces or ramps around, but we're kind of waiting on that. We wanted to get the board's feedback on this plan tonight before we go ahead and do any more detailed work on this. And the one thing that did come out of the traffic consultant's review, I don't know if that was in the email or not, but it'll come up eventually, is in the interim, if we cannot get some type of shared driveway with Cumberland's, to at least consider maybe a pedestrian connection. So that's something I think we can definitely explore at our end. So right now on the abutting side of Cumberland Farms, where that thicker green strip is on the Cumberland's property, the town has an access pedestrian easement already in place. So we may be able to, at least in the interim, provide a connection to that, maybe through our property, so at least pedestrians can cross back and forth. So that's where the project stands. I know there's been some thought, there's a question out there about us possibly considering providing an easement for future, call it traffic improvements, to do something on Cumberland's. I think that's definitely something we would entertain. It's just a question of how it would work. So basically, I think the answer, yes, we would entertain it. When that question comes up, it's just a question of how to put it in place. But certainly we're willing to discuss that. So I will leave it with that. That's just a quick update. We wanted to get this in front of you to get some feedback before we're taking any further.
Great, thank you. Board?
I might as well go first because I'll probably speak more than once, Dave, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
So thank you, Dan, for trying to get this to work the right way. I think that as a board, we can't control how people think, but we can control as best we can through every bit of our authority, the flow and the contiguous nature of these properties. We did it with Dan's Pharmacy and Cape Cod 5.
Mhm.
We fixed Dan's after Cape Cod went in. I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. When Dan's was built, that access was horrible because of the property next to it that was not in full. There was title issues and all sorts of stuff going on over there that they couldn't just encroach and fix it. And once that property was cleaned up and bought by Cape Cod 5 and their plans came in, we made them connect through to Dan's, and they fixed Dan's entrance. Now Dan's employees park at Nantucket Bank and walk through the bushes. I just don't want to see one stubborn property owner create something that we have to fix in 5 years instead of 2 years, 1 year. But we also have to think about this property owner has rights to develop this property. He can't control how a neighbor thinks. You got Chris Young solved his side, you know, in the right kind of manner to get this to function. You have to think of these properties as individual properties, but they're public access. They're not houses. They're not just somebody's property that they live on. They have to function as if they're all one owner or one property contiguously as best we can. So the easement idea, I think, is the best solution at the moment. The pedestrian access, when we approved or when we first heard and by the way, Cumberland Farms was not the applicant. This was supposed to be some kind of bakery, as I recall, in its original approval. And we made sure that we got that access because people walk from Allen's Way to Stop and Shop, and they've been doing it for forever. Okay. And if that got blocked, that people would have had to walk all the way around Hooper Farm Road, which is ridiculous. So connecting that through is definitely, we need to do that. However, that has to happen legally to continue that access for both sides, for both Cumberland side, for both and this new side. As far as losing parking spaces in that circle, Dan, if we could do this project the way we really want to, meaning the Cumberland entrance, the exit would become the entrance and the other side would be the exit, where your current entrance is. Would that go away, Dan? If that was fixed, all that would go away and we'd have more parking. I can't remember exactly what the plan looked like, but I know there was more parking, shared parking, by the way, both businesses, for both Cumberland and for this new project.
We'd pick up 10 parking spaces in the shared driveway scenario.
And the circle thing would go away, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure because we've never seen the circle idea yet. And that circle is not there for exiting, it's there for movement and keeping people in the right positions, correct?
Right, the circle is simply there, so when someone enters the parking lot, and they get to the end of the parking lot, they can easily turn around and go back out again without having to find a way to turn around at the end.
Okay, so we're having an exit and an entrance here, Dan? I thought we were just coming in only.
There's entrance only on the Cumberland side and entrance and exit on the 16 Spark side.
Oh, I see what you mean. You're talking about when someone's coming in from the other side and they can turn. I got it. Never mind. I lost you there for a second. Now I understand it. I understand it now. Okay, very good. Okay, that's it for me right now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Anybody else? I see we might have oh, Barry.
Yeah, thank you. Just one thing, I'm glad things are kind of moving ahead. It's sad about Cumberland Farms, but so be it as to what it is. On the back side of the property, where we were going to plan on doing something, a pedestrian easement kind of across to Cumberland Farms is fine. I think that would happen under its own accord anyways. But I would also like to see something that begins to maybe look like a roadway easement, about 20, I don't know, at least in a minimum about 20 feet wide available. The interconnectedness between that and the roadway on the other side of the property is something that this board needs to take a serious look at still to this day. The pedestrian easement that happened in Cumberland's was entertained possibly as a roadway easement to get and shunt some traffic around. So again, I'd like to at least consider that it's something that the board, that we deal with it now, at least get the easement into play. And I can't say there'll be a guarantee by the board or to develop it, but I'd at least like to have it on the table for future access. Does that make sense, Dan?
Are you stating, make clear, so you're talking about a roadway or access easement adjacent to Cumberland's?
All right, bring up the plan for me if you would. And I actually need it kind of blown up by the bottom left-hand section. There we go. So where you have yeah, there you go. So I'm thinking roughly around where you have your enclosed dumpster. And the greens, the little bit of green space that's there. Maybe 1 or 2, 3 of those parking spaces, but I'm looking at just having an easement. I know there's nothing on the other side of the property at the moment. That doesn't mean that things won't change in the future. For a while, this board has been wanting to look at getting something in place to be able to instead of just farming all the traffic out onto Sparks Ave. So I'd at least like that to be available to us. Like I said, whether something happens or not, I don't know.
All right, so I just want to make sure I'm clear. So what you're talking about is access to Allen's Lane. Is that the direction you're headed?
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to head to. I'm sorry.
And we can definitely take a look at it. Megan, is there any chance you can put up the GIS up over there?
As a matter of fact, I was trying to get GIS. There we go.
All right, that's close. I just want to make sure everybody understands. So Allen's Lane is in the bottom left corner of that screen. So it's not
Right.
so it doesn't. Yeah, this will be easier when she has this up.
That's fine.
I understand what you're trying to do. I'm not sure if an easement on this property would get you there.
And it's currently, just looking at it, you're 100% correct. It's not going to get us there. But what needs to take place in our future becomes a very different thing. Again, I would, just as one member of the board, and everyone else can decide on this, I'd like to have that opportunity available just to begin to think about for future planning purposes. And like any easement, it does expire if we don't pull the trigger on it. So
That's certainly something we can explore. We can check, we can get an answer to that by the next meeting. I think we're
Yeah,
doing something to that effect with Cumberland's anyways.
I would really appreciate it, and just, have the conversation maybe with staff as well too, to see what their thoughts are. There'd be a lot of moving components to make it happen. But I know for as long as I've been on the board, and especially when we started working with Cumberland Farm, that was something that we sincerely wanted to have in place. And it just didn't happen, but I don't want to let it off the radar yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Any, Joe?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, it's too bad something couldn't be worked out with Cumbies, but the one question I have is,
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I got a couple things going on.
Oh, Steve, hold on. There we
hang
go.
on. Okay.
Is Steve in another meeting at the same time?
I think there's an
Oh, that-
ACC Concom thing going on today.
Dave, that's my twin. We've got one ID. I'll be right back to you.
All right, bud.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm back.
No, that's right. We got Joe on, and I'll call on you next if you need.
Okay, so yeah, it's just too bad that Cumberland Farms couldn't work on an agreement. But through you, Mr. Chair, to Dan, were they open to the idea of having foot traffic, like some way to kind of define that, with whether it's either painted lines and some way to walk, and then just a hardened surface to getting from A to B, from one lot to the other lot?
Yeah, I honestly have not had to talk to them about the pedestrian access point of view. That was a recent thought. But the town already has a pedestrian easement on our common property line. So
Yeah.
I could certainly have that talk with them. But I think in reality, if we were to provide a connection to that easement, which you as a town and planning would already have rights to utilize, that we may be able to, if I will talk to them again after this meeting, and if they're not interested, you may still be able to, of your own abilities, pursue it.
Yeah, I think it was something where that roundabout was, something that kind of connects, which is probably the back end of their loading zone.
We'll have something to
right.
connect from our sidewalk across, definitely.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So, all right, thank you.
Very good. Where did Stephen go? Stephen, did you have something to say, or was that just confusion? All righty then. Oh, here he is.
Mr. Chair.
Hello, Stephen.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Timing's not so great tonight. Do I get a chance? Did you call my name?
You're up, my friend.
Okay, thanks. So I think a couple things. I want to pick up where Barry left off. I think he made an important distinction, or an important point about forward-looking and the easement. Obviously, only accessing the property along Allen's Way is part of a solution. The other part of it is regardless of whether Cumbies comes on board or not, I understand that they're waiting for a call. But I think that having an easement in place there, as well as on the east side, so that, can we look at the sheet 1 of 1? It's dated January 17th, I think, Dan. Sorry, I have on top of everything a foster kid who wants to play with my headset. Yeah, Dan, not to make it the site plan that shows the full connection to Cumberland's with the crosswalk. I think you might have gone by it. A lot of this other stuff is Chinese, and I'm not really up on my Mandarin. Yeah, so I just, to be quick about it, I think the concept of having an easement in place on the west is important, on the south is important. And I would open up the discussion to the east, because if for some reason at some point that those lots are purchased, it would be helpful to be able to not have to go back and negotiate with you all being the applicant and the applicant's agent, but to have work resolved an easement out in the currently, so that it's available for future use. The only other thing I wanted to get to on this, can we go to the one with the circle?
Steve, can I interrupt? Are you suggesting an easement towards Hooper Farm Road?
Yeah, because if for some reason these lots to the east, let's say in the future the same thing happens, these lots sell. I know some of them are individual ownerships, but say that they sell to one interest, as occurred with this group. It would be very helpful to be able to continue flow. And I'm not suggesting to go out onto Hooper Farm, but to have some type of an anchor for discussion for traffic flow management if we've got some easements in place. And I don't think it would be reasonable to try and game out specifically what those would look like. There's really no way to know, and there's no way to know when or if it would even happen. But having an easement along that western side for reorientation of parking to allow traffic flow, I think could be beneficial.
Right.
On the turning circle, I think, it's clearly a novel idea. Dan, through Mr. Chair, can you just give me an idea of what the turning diameter or the radius is relative to the Sparks Ave? Half, 3/4, a quarter?
I don't know off the top of my head what the Sparks roundabout dimension is, honestly. I know that our pavement width on this one is 18 feet. I don't know what Sparks Ave rotary dimension is. It's
Okay.
probably very similar. It might be a little bigger,
Okay.
but I don't know.
Thank you. I was just kind of curious. I actually have a 2004 F-350. The turning radius is that of an aircraft carrier. So I won't be using that particular feature if it gets approved. But I was kind of curious because I know there's other vehicles on the island. Hopefully people are wise enough to go down there one evening and make sure they're not going to jam up traffic. The only thing I would say on this, I think the Cumberland Farms connection is strongly preferred, in my opinion. And two, that there would be a plan B if this turning circle is approved, because the Cumberland Farms connection couldn't be made, that there would be a plan B that games out what parking would look like if this, failed, in the sense it wasn't as useful as was hoped. So that if some layout needed to occur to provision for the change, it happened in advance to the extent reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Can I just answer a couple of his questions quick, make sure I have what he's thinking?
Of course, Dan.
On the right side of the property, on the Young side, you talked about some easements. So if you're looking at just a plan in front of you, the easements you're actually talking about will already be in place. So on the right-hand side of the property, you can see the Young, the three buildings, what we'll call the house fitters property. And right where our property line goes through their parking lot, there will be a common access and use, an access driveway easement across that entire right area. Our parking lot and part of their parking lot will be shared access easements. And that will run with the property, the owners. So that, I think that may answer your question about access and easements. That's part of this whole negotiations for that easement to exist. And then on the left side, I think in terms of if the Cumberland's shared driveway scenario were to come back on board at some point, what you would go revert back to is the plan you were talking about before that had to, if Megan, if you scroll down again, had the shared parking somewhere in there.
The one that Steve had up.
The one that's, the one that Steve had asked to have up there to show the sidewalk crossing through the driveway. Essentially, that would be the plan that everybody would want to revert back to in one form or here we go. So that is the plan with the shared access, shared parking that we would essentially you know, if everything worked out right, revert back to. And that would recreate the parking, the shared access and everything we're looking for.
Yep.
That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members? We still. Oh, Nat, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm having a tough time with my situation with Zoom on my iPad. It's not working, so that's why I'm like this. So, Dan, a follow-up to earlier, and it is the traffic consultant people. There's been two different people having a crack at this, right? Or is it just one? I can't remember how this was left.
Sure. There's MDM Transportation, who is our traffic review consultant, and the town's planning board's review consultant is Beta.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
The long traffic list report is from our MDM, and Beta pretty much at this point has sent an email in, but they haven't issued a final letter yet.
Okay, so the question is, are they aware of this? We're going to be in the UK with this new idea versus America with the other one that they won't agree to. And it's not Cumberland's. We need to stop saying that. It's the owners of the actual property, not actually Cumberland Farms. I don't want them to get a bad reputation here or some kind of odd narrative that isn't accurate. So we all love Cumbies. So do they know about all this? Have they seen both scenarios?
Yes, the both consultants have seen both scenarios. We had a conversation last week or the week before, I believe, with everybody, all the different traffic consultants on the phone. I think if Mike Burns is still here on the call, he was also there.
Okay.
Everyone had seen the plan and actually preferred to a degree, at least in the interim, how this would have at least for now anyways, a lesser impact on people having to change their routes, so to speak. But they had all seen it and signed off on it.
Meaning the one that we have to go with, or
Correct.
being kind of, pushed towards. Okay, but do they understand the functionality of the gas station and how that kind of currently works on that side? And it's a little funky how you pull out sort of to the left, even though you're supposed to be on the right, and cars coming in, and you kind of have to jiggle around and wait for somebody to move, which is okay and it functions. But this next phase, if we could do the right thing, would alleviate quite a few vehicles pulling in where they currently do now, where they currently have to pull in. It would actually help that problem that happens when you leave the gas station and turn left. You sort of, kind of like going head on into somebody else sort of coming in. You sort of have to, it's like you're at 5 corners for 2 seconds there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the traffic consultants, I'm not sure about Beta necessarily, but I know MDM has been involved in all the traffic reports up and down Sparks with Stop and Shop. Actually, I believe part of Cumberland's, and they've looked at some others. So I'm positive they're very aware of all the situations right in this neighborhood, and they've both reviewed both versions of the plans.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something here. I don't know if you guys can hear me right now.
Yes.
We have tried very hard to work with them, and they're not being at all reasonable. I want this whole board to hear that from me as a developer. We've been very reasonable. They're not interested in helping this project or Nantucket, as far as I'm concerned, in this whole area. That's been their position all along. And we've been trying to be really, really helpful with these guys in any which way that we want, on a financial level, and they're just not being reasonable. So we're not here. We're not the problem on this.
Yep.
I just wanted everyone to hear that, the problem is on the other side here. And we would love to have that fixed. So one way or the other, because for the purpose of Nantucket as a whole with the area, it would just be a much better flowing situation. This can still work just fine. But I think on big picture level stuff, it just works better.
No, I don't think any of us are questioning your intent and your desire to get that done. So thank you.
Yep.
Board members. Do we still have a hand up in the public, Meg?
Yes, Val Oliver.
Welcome, Val.
Can you hear me?
Again, welcome.
Thank you. First, I'd like to start by saying it would be really, really courteous to have your face on TV instead of a black screen. And secondly, I think you guys really need to start thinking about meeting in person. Things like this that are really huge that will impact absolutely everybody deserve face-to-face meeting. That's how I'm starting. Number two.
Hold on a second, Val. I don't see your face here.
That's what I'm saying. My face is blacked out.
Okay.
So anyway, that aside, my concern always has been and still remains parking in cars, overdevelopment. I think you can have a fine project here. Everyone knows that the Mid-Island's going to be built out. We all accept that, but it should be reasonable, and it should be reasonable all the way around. It shouldn't just be reasonable for the people who want to develop areas. It should be for the people who live here. And having lived through this summer of traffic in this area, I fail to understand how any of this is really going to work, and especially the car thing. The traffic survey that's been going around all summer, nothing's been produced from that. And I look forward to see what the traffic consultants have to say, because logic tells me it's a challenge. And then the only other thing, it's great that there's going to be some housing, but I think that end of it also needs to be cut back. The idea that there's not even a car space for each bedroom in this project is disturbing to me. So it's cars, it's traffic. It's just being reasonable. And I know you guys are under a lot of pressure to approve things, but I really think once in a while, it's okay to say, not so much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Al. I think you're going to see it in HDC, so you'll have your opportunity. Anyone else in the public?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Great. So,
Mr. Chair, can I just ask one more question before we close, or not close, before we continue this? Megan, and I'm not, Leslie's not here, so I don't want to put you on the legal spot too much. Between now and the next meeting, I'd like staff to look at the decision on, the old Egan property next door, Cumberland's, but really I don't consider it that. It's the owners. And what we said in that decision, what the conditions were about future development, because I think there's something in that decision. And what leverage we have in that, with that decision, whether it's with this application or with another public hearing, because that's an MCD. And maybe, get town council's opinion. This is 2023. This isn't 1982 when no one cared and we just haphazardly did things. This has to function. And those 10 parking spaces were shared spaces, were in that spot where they were going to be. That's a big deal. Okay. I think of all the development that's happened one place at a time, starting with Kitty's in 1999 or 2000, and how it's all evolved and people are sharing and different things have happened, and the old approval at the Craig property that has never happened, but there will be something there someday. But I'm just saying, we've done a lot on this in this corridor, but it's got a long way to go. It's not finished, and it will be one at a time over time. But this one's a big one, And Val, I understand Val's concerns as far as the, what she's talking about. We don't know how it will flush out. There will be more public parking over time as well in this area. But getting it right with the flow part is, in my eyes, is as important as the parking, because it ain't free to do it twice. So I'm just asking you, Megan, to find out between meetings how much leverage we have as the planning board on this issue. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Megan, public hands down.
Nobody.
Right, unless someone has anything to add, I'd entertain a motion to continue.
I just make one really quick wrap up. So obviously we're going to continue to the September meeting. What our goal is to come back to that meeting with the concept in front of you fully detailed out. At that point, we'd expect to have a landscape plan, a lighting plan, essentially some of the loose ends that we haven't been able to bring before you yet. With the goal, if things are pointing in the right direction, possibly wrap this up in September. So I just wonder, is there any, I know there's landscaping, there's lighting, there's final details. If there's anything in general manner anyone is considering that they'd like to see or haven't seen yet, that we could possibly address at that meeting.
How many HDC meetings will you have by then for this? Just one?
That I don't know. I should be, depends on their calendar, how they work. I'm assuming at least one. It could be two. I'm not an expert on the HTC calendar there.
Yeah.
Any insight from Stephen on that?
Or Billy. Billy might know.
I think that'll make a difference as far as what Dan's saying.
I think one at least, best two.
We're going to be in there tomorrow, guys. I know that we're on schedule for tomorrow, and I'm hoping to have at least one more before our meeting.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Billy.
There is a HDC meeting tomorrow, so depending on how that board decides, if they request a revision, then it's on the applicant to bring it back. So there's no timetable on that. It's kind of hard to say how many meetings they would make it to.
Thank you, Billy. Stephen, did you have something to add in?
Yeah, I just thought it fair to say, at the HCC, this is in a very preliminary stage. I think there will be if there are going to be fundamental modifications requested, it'll be over the course of the next two meetings. And then it would be a matter of fine tuning details, architectural elements. So I don't know if that helps with a timeline, but that's typically something of this complexity would be at least 3 meetings to scope out what the structural aspects are going to be, not the architectural structure, but the overall massing, and then go from there.
Okay. So, and I have one addition, Dan, and maybe you can answer this. I know that we talked about stormwater and maybe nitrogen removal. Was there any progress made on that?
So the stormwater system, we're going to make some updates to now that it sounds we've got a general, I'll say, consensus on the layout we're working with. So there will be some stormwater updates to, I know the Carbon Water Company's already signed off on it. The landscape design will incorporate a little bit more of the nitrogen removal questions you're asking. So there'll be updates to the stormwater as well as the landscaping. And we'll get all that back. That'll all go through at Pesci as well.
Great. Thank you. Barry, did you have it?
Just real quickly, I want to echo what Nat said earlier on two different points. One is I think having staff review the previous application where Cumberland's now sits would be a good idea, just for sake of thoroughness. And the second thing, most importantly, to Mr. Malloy and Mr. Fiumar, I really, as one member of the board as well, I really appreciate the fact of how hard you've worked with your neighbors on both sides to try to make some other realizations happen about traffic flow and stuff. So it's not lost. Again, I know it's not easy, but thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Great. So we're going to continue this to next month, correct?
Yes, please.
And hope,
And that'll be my motion, sir.
great. Do you have a second?
Second. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Made
Second.
by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next on to Costas Avalon LLC, 50 Brunel Street. Meg, do I need to pick an alternate for this? Joe's recusing, John's not here.
No, unfortunately, this is an AR definitive subdivision, so we can't have alternates. So this will be a 3-member board if it goes to a vote tonight. Otherwise, John will have the opportunity to complete Mullen paperwork.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. Dan, do you want to let it rip on this?
Good evening, Dan Malloy again, site design engineering for the applicant. I don't know if Arthur Reed might be logging in here at some point, possibly. So before you this evening for a 3-lot subdivision off 50 Brunel Street over in Sconset. The property is zoned SR 20, so it's a 20,000 square foot zoning allowance. So we're asking for 3 oversized lots. The access to the property would be via a 20-foot right of way, which would be turned into a 14-foot gravel spec road. Would provide a pull off roughly halfway down the road. So if someone had to pass or repass, they could pull over and pass. We've done similar on other gravel roads across the island. The property has access to town sewer. There's availability of town water. I'm not sure if we're going to stick with town water or put wells in, but access to both are available. Town sewer crosses through the property right now. There's underground utilities for everything out there. Half of that, a majority of the electrical service is already in place. There's a transformer on the property. So it's essentially taking an existing oversized property. We're subdividing, like I said, into 3 lots, utilizing the existing driveway, cleaning up its width, straightening it out, adding some landscaping and whatnot. But the driveway access is essentially already in place. The existing house right now, I think in the initial application, we might have noted that it was going to be removed. However, at this point, we're looking to keep the existing house, which fits on the lot as it's currently shown, so I don't have to change anything there. That's generally the application. It's fairly straightforward. It's the same type of application, same design, similar configuration to what the board approved a couple of years ago on the abutting property at 52 Brunel Street. So with that, Arthur Reed is also signed on now as well. If he wants to add something, we can answer questions.
Right.
I don't have anything further to add right at this point, but obviously I'm here for the questions as they may come up.
Yep.
Thank you, Arthur. Board members.
Mr. Chairman, sorry. So I've gotten familiarized with this situation out here, and I'm gonna wait for other comments if there's some people from the public that want to speak on this, but this house was built just before zoning, sitting in the middle of this gigantic lot with this little driveway kind of running in there.
Mhm.
There wasn't another house out here. That's 7 years before I started work, 5 years before I started working in Wisconsin, when there was still no houses out here. So this is a really interesting sort of old sort of, I don't know how to explain it, but existing sort of development, the way they used to do things, that happens to abut a somewhat old subdivision on Plainfield, but obviously a lot more recent than this, but in essentially half-acre zoning sitting there. This reminds me of some of that stuff off of Rugged Road on the left with that wild R20 sitting there like that for years. So I think, limiting them to no more subdivision, a lot more development could happen back here. This could be a gigantic compound with a ton of ground cover. I think what Dan said about the keeping the house in its spot is kind of important, because it somewhat restricts what they can do on that lot that's closer to the Plainfield subdivision. And it's unfortunate that similar to the last application, that there can't be a common access worked out between 52 and 50. But that should not be that isn't our, I don't want to say our problem, but we can't control that. Okay. So, but that's unfortunate that hasn't been able to be worked out. When did we see this the last time? Like 2 years ago, Megan? Trying to think. It's been a while.
I think it's been about 2 years. I think 2021 was when 52 Burnell Street was brought forward.
Yeah. I remember this. I just can't remember what year it was. Okay. Thank you for now.
Anyone else on the board? Arthur?
Yeah, just on that point of the access, there's no question that it would be a better planning situation for all parties if there were mutual easements in that section coming in from Burnell Street. In fact, we had back before the adjacent property at 52 came in with the subdivision, there had been discussion of, in fact, having mutual easement coming in through there. And we had got to the point that Dan had prepared a sketch to show it on behalf of the adjacent owner, and I had drafted a proposed mutual easement arrangement, which I circulated. And at that point, we were told that the owner at 52 was not willing to participate in it. We would continue to remain willing to participate if there could be an agreement between the parties. But I've been more recently informed by their lawyer that they're not interested. So, there's no question it would be a better layout. It would allow a more separation between the access road, which is little more than a driveway in either case, and the adjacent properties. But as you were just noting in the last application that came before you, ideas of cooperation between neighbors that may make a great deal of sense don't always get worked out in practice when you're dealing with the people involved.
Great. Thank you, Arthur. Barry?
Thank you. So just a few things so that I'm very clear at this point. Each lot is going to be restricted to one dwelling only, correct?
No, we haven't offered or suggested any restrictions. It's similar, so that the adjacent property at 52, there was no restrictions placed on that one either.
All right, so I want to be clear because that's going to drive a lot of different directions here at this point. With that in mind, the idea that this is going to be a driveway, it is not even remotely compatible with what I see happening there. If there's going to be more subdivision occurring within those three lots, then that driveway needs to become a formalized roadway.
Barry, I think there's a difference here, because I think that in the conditions we've suggested no more subdivisions, but your question was one building per property. So that.
That's exactly what I'm saying. No no secondary tertiaries.
Okay, I just want to be clear because thank you.
All right, and I'm just gonna stop there for a second because I see Megan's got her hand raised and she may want to tell me something that I'm not quite familiar with.
If I may, through you, Mr. Chair, the recommended, obviously, it's up to you all to discuss and implement conditions, but the conditions that were suggested in the staff report reflect the decision next door at 52 Burnell Street. So I did take a look through that decision and carried over conditions that were in that decision for recommended conditions in this decision.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that and I like that, but all I'm saying is that in its current iteration right now, if everything's restricted to one dwelling only per lot, what I would like to see come out of that is that if it is going to remain a gravel driveway, that driveway needs to be realigned within its tracks, because I see it straying outside of its tracks. And, you know, as we've done with other things, I would really like to see that realigned. At a minimum, I would like to see at least a 20-foot asphalt. What am I looking for here? A 20-foot asphalt entrance exit onto Burnell Street, so the gravel isn't being washed down into or being tracked into Burnell. If there is going to be future development within those three lots beyond just, you know, primary dwellings for each, then that roadway, it's going to have to come back before the board where that driveway becomes a much more formalized roadway. And the idea of it being gravel may have to get changed to something different in terms of what happens. Because with 9 dwellings on there, I have a real issue with it continuing to act and function like a gravel roadway. But especially with the interface with Burnell Street, I need to make sure that, you know, that there's not that washout effect beginning to happen. So that's just my thoughts for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Dan.
Barry, I'll give you the no tertiary dwellings right now. Secondaries I've got to discuss with the clients and so on, but
Okay.
I'll tell you right now, really no tertiaries.
All right. And thank you. So I'm still going to stand where I was. We'll see how this plays out. But I'm not saying we need to do it right now, but if depending upon where we head to, the option for the board to do it, because I realize too that even though we say that today, there's, oh my God, yow. Sorry, left knee just seized up. It was in a weird position. That was painful. Maybe that's God telling me not to tamper with this one. I just want to be clear that for future things that may come before this board, you know, there's always the opportunity for the applicant to say, nah, we've changed our mind and would like to come back before the board to be able to do certain things. So somehow I want to get that on record that even if it's more secondary tertiaries, that we've at least considered it and let the board know and let the applicant know that's something we need to look at. Thank you.
Megan had her hand up first.
And Arthur, thank you for offering up no tertiaries in SR 20 where they're not allowed.
That's what I was just gonna say. SR 20 does not permit tertiary dwelling units, so there would not be the possibility of
I'll give you something I don't have any day of the week.
I know Arthur knew that all along. Matt.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to jump in on this now faster than I thought. So I did a little driving around out there today. Not that I need to learn a new spot, but that particular road driveway, I've never gone down there before, to be honest. So I did a little more looking around, and so when Barry speaks to this, I respectfully ask Barry to rethink a little bit and take a ride and take a ride behind Burnell Street on Sunset Ridge Lane. That's about 10 feet wide. And it feeds about 20 houses. It's two-way, even though no one's coming from New Street, it is two-way. And every house that abuts that little way that goes through there is accessed to those people's driveways. And then you have Towatty subdivision built in the late 70s, as I recall. And on the left side of that subdivision, you know, the west side, there's a common driveway that runs down behind all those houses that gives those people some parking and access and little places, little driveways. I don't see anyone complaining about that. This will be nothing compared to the amount of houses on those two. You know, and again, like I was saying before, there no more subdivision. They could make more lots back here. There's town sewer and water. So for them to make these lots oversized and have a restriction on no further subdivision, to me is a pretty big gift, considering they're in half-acre zoning. Essentially, they're making it kind of like an R40 in Wisconsin, to be honest, which is, I think, is a gift. So I just want, you know, think about those other common, there's other common driveways I could bring up that function this way. There's quite a few. There's a lot in Pulpus. There's up on the cliff, 144, 146, 148 has that funky, long connecting driveway to multiple dwellings. I mean, these are going to be seasonal homes. You know, they're not going to be, this isn't where housing is going. So, you know, I think that there'll be a way for this to work by a natural access that gets developed in there by, you know, by the owners and the people using it. We'll figure it out. That's it for me for now.
Thanks, Nat. And can I add a couple things, Dan, before I call on you, and it'll give you more fodder. I appreciate everything Barry said, of everything that Nat has said. I think I have a couple concerns with the waivers. One being storm drainage. I'm concerned that with the added non-permeable surface on these lots, that what could not be a problem now could become a problem. And I think that it's only responsible to at least review a drainage plan for the property. The road's going to have a lot more traffic on it, will be used a lot more. And I think I personally have concerns that more non-permeable surface and site work there could change the dynamic of the stormwater runoff there. So I have a concern there. I have a concern with no landscape plan, because I feel that you're going to have to widen, or you're going to have to cut back so much on that road to make it accessible for work trucks, to make it work for the fire department, that I think that a landscape plan would be helpful to understand, or helpful to mitigate the impact of that on the neighbors next to the road. So those are just my two issues with this now, and I would really like to see Petchy's report before we approve this. So, Dan?
All right, I'll start off with trying to answer some of Barry's questions. So I know we've been talking about this as a driveway, which from a functional standpoint, that's what it's going to look like. But from an approval planning board standpoint, it's a road. And I know right now it does meander, it doesn't go straight. It may still at some points meander outside of the 20 feet. So as part of this whole process, we have to correct that. That's not an option for us. So it will be straightened out. If we put in the right of way, if it's not today, completely straightened out, and then built to whatever width specification satisfies the board. Right now, we have 14 feet provided with a pullout in the middle. We can certainly go to 16 feet if that, was more appeasing to everyone. And in terms of some type of a solid surface apron out at Burnell Street, that is absolutely not a problem, whether it's pavement, cobble, some type of impervious apron was typical anyways. So I wouldn't have an issue with that. In terms of, Dave, your questions, the stormwater, initially the application proposed that all the houses require storm drains on the houses. We can certainly add a component into the roadway itself. We're going to be working on the road anyway. So to add a stormwater component to that, we can certainly do that. And then landscaping, we can certainly take a look at that. I know most of the houses, not all of them, but a good portion of them on that side you're talking about in the playing field have solid board fencing, I think on a lot of them already. So certainly that can be infilled where necessary, or maybe we can plant some more stuff right up against it. So I think we can easily accommodate most of what we're talking about. The only question I think that may be out there, and based on what I've seen as well as what Nat mentioned about other roads out there, I think if we go to 16 feet, and obviously we can't do tertiaries, the 16 feet, and from what I've done and seen on the island is, in my opinion, is more than adequate for a primary and secondary on both lots. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any more questions from the board? We could open up to the public. All right, Meg, do we have some hands up?
Yep, I have Benji Gresky followed by Toby Strassenberg.
Great. Welcome, Benji.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Hopefully you can see me. I don't know if you can, but my question is, if you go to Megan, if you pull up the drawing, one lot's missing, and that's actually Scott Paoli's lot, and he's the owner of Costas Avalon. And I'm curious as to, and that's the sort of missing square, I think, or kind of out here to the left. I'm wondering why the access road wasn't through that property instead of creating this very long driveway that impacts many different homes, where he abuts property that isn't his on either side. I'm not sure, why didn't they just go through his current lot on the playing field versus this long meandering one? And so I'm curious, my first question is, did he look into that? Did the planning look into that? Doesn't that make a lot more sense here than, impacting the backside of a number of different homes on the playing field?
Anyone want to field that one? Dan?
I can jump in on that one quick, and the answer is, so two answers. One, no, we did not look at coming in off of the other property in Plainfield Road. The infrastructure, the driveway, everything is in place as it sits and has always been accessed from Burnell Street, which is certainly what we would prefer and intend to do.
Perfect. Thank you. Benji, was there more, or was that it for now? Megan, did,
Oh, sorry, I moved him over. Hold on.
oh, you're
Okay,
back.
I'm back.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, does the 16-foot road that you just mentioned have any buffer to our properties, or does it completely go up against our property? Because the 14-foot road, I believe, only gives us 1 foot buffer. Are you saying that the 16-foot road does have a buffer, or are you saying it would not have any buffer and would be completely against my property?
As I believe Dan just explained, it would have some buffering. There are existing, as he pointed out, existing fences.
Arthur, that's not the question. Is sorry, but that's not the question. The question is there a buffer? Right now, one of the waivers includes something like a 1 foot buffer to my property. If you go to a 16-foot road, how big is the buffer to my property? Is it still 1 foot?
We'd have to look at that. Yeah, we're not going to put it directly up against the property line, certainly. And as Dan mentioned, the concept would be to augment the existing buffer with plantings and additional fencing as necessary to provide some reasonable separation for you and the other Plainfield Road owners.
Okay, Arthur, I think we'd like to probably see that.
Benji, if I can interrupt, I've asked for a landscape plan.
Okay,
We'll be getting more definitive plans from them, and I don't mean to interrupt you. Just wanted to let you know that's been asked for and should be coming next meeting, I assume.
okay, thank you.
Yep. Toby.
Hi, Mr. Chair. I don't know if I can be seen either, but
You can be heard.
I can be heard. Okay, perfect. I'm Toby Strassenberg, one of the homeowners of 52 Brunel. So I can speak to many of the things I just heard about. I don't know if I can remember them all, but I'll do my best. First off, my grandfather created this development and the architectural designs for all the different properties. And yes, obviously it was laid out way before any rules and regulations to the subdivision. We did come before the board in 2021 and had a few different options, but we're limited in a sense from our driveway and then our turning radius. And for the hope of not being restricted on our lots, we and size and square footage determined that easiest and best route was to create 2 oversized lots. For a little history, I think my neighbor's property at 50 Brunel was deemed to be 1 large oversized lot, which it has been since inception, and then potentially 2 large oversized lots, which has now been modified to be 3 oversized lots. And that's kind of where our main biggest concern is. We know they're oversized. We know it's half-acre zoning. But if we established a precedent at 52 Brunel Street, it would be for a 2-lot subdivision. So that's my first big ask of the board. And also there's a slight design difference between what we had and what Dan Malloy's proposed for the frontage on a 3rd lot being along the roadway that's created and then going to a half circle turning radius. Potentially we could have created something like that to do 3 lots, but then again, it'd go back to our thoughts were how much traffic could you actually have on a 14-foot road, 12-foot road, or 20-foot road, old driveway servicing 2 or 3 lots. 2 lots, I totally understand. 3 lots would be a lot. And I'd encourage everybody to go and actually see it for themselves. The gravel roadway right now does meander, and it's about 9 feet wide in some places. If it was 14 or 16 feet, it would completely wipe out most of the vegetation that buffers them from Plainfield Road, specifically behind, I think it's number 5 Plainfield, or right next to Benji Grisky's house, where the road narrows down drastically. And the 20-foot driveway property line is basically in the neighbor's yard. And then our property line is actually in some places in the middle of that driveway now and kind of skirts back and forth. So we were hoping to somewhat limit the traffic that would run alongside of our new lot that we just created, which we have future plans to reduce in size because nobody seems to be interested in oversized lots on our property, but they are interested in our neighbor's property. But I just think of the future ongoing impact, at least 6 cars, and at least double that for any build out of the property. There's a electrical easement from National Grid that runs that entire length of the property. And when we were doing our infrastructure plans, that transformer that's currently there is not big enough to support any more lots. In fact, we had to pay to have it upgraded to support our one extra lot. There's also, as Mr. Malloy mentioned, a sewer line that runs down the driveway of 50 Burnell, but that's a tiny pressure line that serves 15 Plainfield and runs through 50 Burnell all the way to back to service a Plainfield property. So I don't believe, unless you extended the sewer from Burnell Street, it'd be tough to, Dan could probably answer to this, but I don't know if that one line would be able to service 3 brand new lots. And I guess for now, that's all I have to, those are my comments. It's just, we're concerned about 3 lots, period. We're concerned about the amount of traffic that would be created from 3 lots. Maybe 2 lots would be more appropriate, more in line with the standard set by our property. And then the size, I mean, just where it funnels out, there's a dip in the road there. So there's already puddling when it rains there. So there are some drainage issues. And the road's like a little vegetated tunnel, the driveway currently as it sits. If you were to go and install a 14 or 16-foot road with buffers and landscape plans, I mean, you'd be tearing down everything that's there right now. And that would be somewhat devastating, but maybe that's what has to occur. So that's kind of where we stand at 52 Burnell, and I can answer any questions, Mr. Chair, if need be. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Nat?
I think he just made the case as to why they should be sharing the access.
I could speak to that, actually.
I'm speaking now, you can speak after through the chair. Again, I'm just gonna say the same thing a different way. These 2 properties, since he's spoken, is basically what we're dealing with here is an old way of, we're dealing with something over 50 years old after everything else is built. Similar to what we've had to do up on the cliff with those ones on the left that were there just because they were there. And some down the road, we have to figure out what we're going to do to help these properties when they make a change. If they had 2 lots, they'd be 50-something thousand square feet with 12.5% ground cover. That's a lot of development that could happen on one lot. If I'll entertain an answer from Toby, but they have, I'm assuming, less overall land than number 50 does. So that would be the reason that they have 2 lots, because they're about the same size. As far as their 2 lots, it's similar size to the 3 in the other lot. As far as the width, the 14 feet, that doesn't have to be 14 feet of traveled way. So this is why I brought up those other access roads, especially that Sunset Ridge Lane has at least 20 houses access there. When we, in the back of the day, we used to pave a lot of roads, and we got in a lot of trouble asking for these things. Then we reduced layouts to 20 feet to make things look more rural and old, like these driveways are. Okay, people like the way they look this way. So when we find a way to complain that the road isn't big enough, but then we really don't want a bigger road at the same time, it's one or the other. There'll be turnout type things, I'm sure, in the design where there can be a car can pull over slightly and pass. But that's the nature of these properties, the way they've been set up since the early 70s. So, it puts us in a box to have to have, a complaint that the road's not big enough, but then complain that the road will be too big at the same time. And it's frustrating because nobody drives as much as I do in a day, except if you're an Uber driver. I see everything. And I've been through a lot of different decisions that create problems with, as far as turnouts, as far as we don't want the road widened, then we used to recommend people to widen them and grade them every year or things like that. And so it's sort of back full circle. And this is something reminding me of the mid 2000s of when we used to make people grade an entire road for one house for a second dwelling. Arthur remembers those days. And this, to me, keeping it looking as original as possible while functioning for the future development is key. And we can condition that. But I think that the traveled way should be as far away from the properties on Plainfield as possible. It should be right up against those trees, and as far as it should be as far away of the Plainfield properties as it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Nat, I agree in a lot of ways, but you drove that road today. I know I drove that road today.
Yep.
There's going to have to be a lot of work done to make it passable by both work trucks, by any fire apparatus that might need to get down there. So my concern is for the Plainfield neighbors. And I feel if they're going to cheat that road to one side or another, it should be away from Plainfield because the houses on the other side are set farther back in the lots.
Correct. I agree.
So thank you.
I think that's what I said.
And we agree.
We agree.
We agree.
And Arthur agrees. And no tertiaries.
No quaternaries either.
So what's the board's pleasure? Should we continue this to next month, wait for Petchy's review and follow-up plans from Dan? Gary?
Yeah, I that seems to be the best way to deal with this. I think there's a few issues that need to be hammered out. There's a little redesign that we're going to need to see that happens. There's a decision that is going to have to be made by the applicant for us to be able to determine what the heck we're going to do. And like I said, even if something as simple as putting in an asphalt pad up front by the interface of Brunel Street, all those things have to be looked at.
Okay.
Arthur, I'm not playing cards with you. That tertiary dwelling thing was just real slick. that was good.
Concept.
Dan, we've got more public. I didn't realize.
Wow, yeah. That
want to chime in now, or you want to hold off till the public speaks?
I can wait till they're done. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
So we have Emily Molden, followed by Cliff Shore, then Frank Quayle, and if you're gonna take people for second rounds of comments, Toby Strassenberg.
Hi, Emily. Welcome.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden here for the Nantucket Land and Water Council. And I recognize that this is going to get continued now, but I just wanted to add a slightly different perspective. I don't necessarily see sacrificing future subdivision as really giving something up. I recognize that this is a large lot that has ample square footage for additional subdivision, but it clearly doesn't have the necessary access under the rules and regs as far as the roadway goes, which is why there's a request for as many waivers as there are. And I think that both of those elements are really necessary for a full subdivision. And I mean, with that, I do think that this is different from 52, and I certainly am supportive and think it would be appropriate to limit these new lots to one dwelling instead of two. And I hope that the board will continue to consider that. And then I was just going to follow up. I know there was a previous comment questioning the sewer line heading out there, just making sure that it does have the capacity for these lots to tie into. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Cliff Shore. Welcome.
Yes, good evening. I didn't think I would be coming to you to speak on this one tonight, but I find myself a newly created abutter. So I thought I would just chime in on a couple things. Obviously, I see the design for 52 with the 2 lots, and I would support the same on 50. I think, here's an occasion where the planning board really has to put their planning hat on, because I know these are, as Nat says, these are sort of problems created in the distant past. But I can also remember that I've had to build $1,200,000 worth of roads to service 4 new homes on the island. And now that infrastructure serves a lot more people. And those types of things in the planning regs are things that protect the public from, spaghetti roads that abut each other, that are both undersized, et cetera, et cetera. So on this one, I would support 2 lots back there unless, access is improved. And by access improved, I mean legitimate spending on infrastructure to create legitimate frontage, which is what's missing on this property. Obviously I'm in the process of buying the lot that affronts Burnell in front of this. So I'm sensitive to, all the issues of people who have landlocked large lots with tiny driveways. But I still think the better planning decision is the decision you made on 52, which is 2 lots and not more, unless infrastructure is significantly improved. I just don't think that area can support, if you're not going to limit secondary dwellings, you're talking about 6 houses on a driveway that is a gravel driveway. I mean, it's glorified, but it's a gravel driveway. It doesn't even have the radius turns at the road.
Thank you, Cliff.
Thanks.
Frank.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for your time. I've talked to Scott a couple times about this, and I've been pretty clear that I just don't want to be disadvantaged in the layout of the road and the buffer. When I did go back there this weekend and look at it, because I only found out about this kind of Friday-ish, and 1 foot from my property line, which is the requested buffer before the road, wipes out the vegetation in my backyard, which leaves me essentially naked to a really crummy looking gravel road. So I'm looking at a massive landscaping bill, as well as a devalued property, to have this thing 8 feet from my back deck. So I would need to see, I mean, there's no site plan, there's no drainage plan. And I'm really nervous about the value of my property. And I respect the right of the owner to, develop like his property within our normal regulations. But it seems like to me that we're looking for 11 variances to make something work. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like I feel enormously exposed now that I've really dug into this. Let me just leave it at that.
Thank you, Frank. We hear you. Anyone else over there? Toby again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to speak to the easement situation. So in 2021, we did discuss and have a plan in place to create a shared, combined driveways, 20 and 20. So a 40-foot right of way that would service our property and also 50 for now on the back. In my discussions with the engineer, and we realized 100% that'd be in the best interest of everybody involved. You could sway the road away, because another thing, that gravel driveway as it exists today butts right up to my property line. there's only one way to go, and that's towards Plainfield Road. If you want to make that thing wider than it is today, that's the only direction. The 20 feet goes towards Plainfield Road, not towards 52 Burnell Street. So in discussing that, there we had some actual pushback from the Plainfield Road neighbors who didn't want a big wide road put in. And at the same time, we realized that not only would we be giving up a driveway access, which goes up 250 feet, we'd actually have to give up our land by the tune of 20 by 250 feet or 5,000 square feet of our actual land. So our lot would be reduced by 5,000 square feet. Same thing would happen today. So we recently approached our neighbor and Mr. Reed and asked if they'd be interested in combining the driveways and in compensating us for the land, 5,000 square feet of land, in order to make a better roadway access to both the lots, providing frontage for both 50 and 52. And there was a disconnect there, which I completely understand. We were able to do it with 20 feet. So, and they're, they have their own 20 feet, but we saw a little more value in our land that we'd have to dedicate to this driveway than just dedicating our individual driveways. So it wasn't like a fair trade across the board. And that was, the opinion of my family members and I. So that's where we were with the easement. I'd also like to point out to the board and you, Mr. Chair, that Sunset Ridge Lane was rezoned from half acre zoning to R10, 10,000 square foot, quarter acre lots. So that's the reason why there might be 20 lots serviced by a tiny road, when before there were 10 lots. And that's happened in numerous places throughout Wisconsin. So the density has increased with the same layout that's always existed historically. And I understand if 2 lots may be unfair, too much of an ask, but definitely some kind of restriction to reduce the amount of traffic, I think would only be fair. One dwelling or what. And I have also questioned along those lines, Mr. Chair, is a one dwelling restriction the same as a one structure restriction? Are you allowed to have your house and accessory structures that aren't considered necessarily dwellings?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a one dwelling restriction. I mean, you could still have zoning sheds and probably a garage. I mean, I guess it really depends on how we worded the restriction.
I got you. Yeah, I guess that for us, the impact is the amount of use of that road. It's always been used for one property, as has ours. Our driveway is still only being used by one property and has the potential to be used by 2 properties, and theirs has the potential to be used by 3 properties. And I think I would personally suffer. We have a plan to reduce our lot down to a half acre lot, and the side of that property would run right by that 3-family driveway. And I think that would create some devaluation for sure. I mean, I might even have to make the lot a different size to provide an even bigger buffer. So it's just 3 lots. It's going to be enough. And I know that at the end of the day, those properties might change hands a couple times for, big dollars. And I don't know if anybody who's spending huge amount of money for a brand new, beautiful place on a huge empty lot is really going to care about anybody's driveway or the abutting neighbors and the amount of cars they have. So that's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toby. Nat.
Mr. Chair, we are this is the most classic conversation. So this land was probably about $10,000 in 70. And we're talking about values. When I hear people talk about property value devaluing, and I read Daybreak every Sunday, I don't know what to say about that. That is the last thing that somebody should be concerned with around here. I can tell you that. So I did a little calculation. 50 Brunel has got 111,000 square feet roughly. and 52 is around 78, 188. So I don't have I think a compromise to asking them to have 2 gigantic lots versus 3 significantly oversized lots is really kind of not the right way to go here. I think that there could be some compromise on, I don't know if we should be going to 1 dwelling per lot, because that's going to be one heck of a gigantic dwelling. I think they should have it restrict, possibly think about going back to the owners and restricting 2 of the lots to 1 dwelling instead of all 3, something to that effect. The one that has a current building on it now might be the one that you would have a second dwelling on, or something like that. Come back to us the next meeting with an answer. As far as the width and the waiver stuff, of course there's waivers, because that's what makes it look like rural and old Nantucket. So if you don't have waivers, you end up with something that doesn't look like Nantucket. So, you know, that is not the right, you know, when that gets used, whether you're a proponent or again opposed to a project, and that gets brought up, you really are asking for something that you don't want. So they want the small driveway, they want the small road, the small layout, not some 40-foot road with 20-foot wide pavement for 3 or 4 houses. That's crazy. So maybe these 2 owners can work together. It sounds like there's something brewing there. I think Toby alluded to that a little bit, and maybe there's something that can be worked out. But again, I'm going to keep saying it. We're dealing with something that was we're dealing with 2 old family properties that have been sitting around for years. Well, development has occurred all around it, and now we're trying to fix it. And it's a tough position to be in, because I don't see a problem with doing what they're asking, but there should be some compromise with both property owners, in my opinion, because of just the nature of these properties. It's a hard to fix. You know, I'd much rather see individual lots than some gigantic compound built like 30 Devon Street, you know, and Tom Nevers. So, you know, I think something's got to get worked out, and hopefully that can happen, and we can move this access away from the abutters on Plainfield more. I think that is the key to this whole thing, is to get that access as far away as possible from Plainfield properties.
I think Nat's hit it on the head there, and I really encourage Toby and the owners to put their heads together and come up with a reasonable solution here to move this road a little bit back off of Plainfield, give everyone some breathing room and the ability to buffer on both sides, and everyone's happy. And I know that's really easily said and not so easily worked out, but I would encourage the 2 owners to try to put their heads together on that. Anybody else? Dan.
Just quickly, I mean, I understand a lot of the questions, and we're certainly going to ask to continue to come back to the next meeting. And so we'll definitely take a look at the roadway width, see what we can do to increase the width, to provide some buffers. But I guess I would encourage, if anybody hasn't had a chance to go out there, just to take a look. So a lot of the buffers and everything we're talking about in terms of Plainfield roadside, everybody on that side is clear cut their lot to the property line. So, and I'm not trying to be adversarial with them, but all of the buffer that everybody's enjoying is actually our applicant's property. So it's, you know, certainly he'll do what he can, but they're all benefiting from our property, even though they've cut everything over to ours. So there's some a little pushback on our end to say, well, you know, wait a minute, You know, we could go out and clear cut all this vegetation tomorrow. I'm not saying we want to do that, but it's to push that back on us 100% when it's not entirely fair. It just doesn't seem totally fair that we should bear the brunt of what they've enjoyed. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
No, thank you, Dan. I think it's clear for this really to be successful that it's going to take both parties here. I mean, not so much Plainfield people because they don't have the ability, but 54 and 52 putting their heads together could make this better for everyone. And I really encourage that to happen, please. Thank you. If there's no one else, I'd entertain a motion.
You've got one more member
Okay.
out there. I don't think they're.
So if you're taking second rounds of comments, Frank Quayle has his hand raised.
Yep. Please keep it quick, Frank, if you can. Welcome back. You're muted, Frank.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's not Frank. It's Margaret McQuaid, so it's not a second round.
All right, thank you.
Computer wasn't working, so I'm borrowing Frank's machine. I am the owner of 7 Plainfield. And I'm quite fascinated by this talk of our enjoying this protection. I had to put a fence up because of the traffic already on this driveway. And I would point out that it is a driveway, and we seem to be throwing the words back and forth, driveway and road, as if they're synonymous. This driveway has had a lot of use with the rental of that property, and that property alone changed the nature of my backyard because of the traffic coming back and forth, and also for work vehicles in reference to work that was being done by the owner, which included putting in that sewer line clearly in order to be able to develop the other lots. When I wanted to borrow the use of that driveway, which is adjacent to mine and much closer to my back property than the Plainfield Road, I was told no, it might damage the trees. So when you refer to Sunset Road, it's not really applicable. Those people all have access to Sunset Road. We don't have access to this driveway, nor are we asking for such, but we're asking for our property not to be abused by whatever occurs there. And what is being proposed would definitely be abusive. And I don't know where this idea came that some of the things we were using as buffers were provided by the owner. No, I provided my own fence and shrubs within there to buffer some of the noise before my house. And any kind of development that would include a number of dwellings using this driveway, first of all, is illegal, as has been pointed out. And secondly, is a definite change for all of us on Plainfield. You say move it. Yes, it should be moved farther away. That would have been a good idea quite some time ago. But the fact is, can it happen? Because it affects the nature of those lots they want to use for development. It seems to me there are a lot of issues here. You've talked about the nature of the property being an old property. It's not a liability. It was a perfectly lovely property. Now, to make it effectively used, we don't need to do it at the expense of contiguous properties. And that is what is proposed here. So I do think, from my perspective, it deserves a lot more attention and a lot more answers for those of us who are asking, who are contiguous and principally affected.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your point of view. Anyone else out there, Megan? Barry?
No.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mr. Chairman, seeing no one else at this point, I'm going to make a motion. We continue this to our September 11th meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Barry, seconded by Nat. Barry?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Joe.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, we're on to CC&C of Mass LLC 20 Arrowhead Drive. Arthur Reed. Still on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By the way, this is a zoning application, so you should be thinking in terms of activating an alternate in connection with it. This is a very simple matter. What we're talking about here is the old Yates Gas building at 20 Arrowhead Drive, which was purchased by the Plumbers Supply and Baines and Jones Electric people, the Jones family, a couple of years ago. And what is proposed now is that the existing building on the property be converted into a 4-unit apartment building, which is permitted by special permit in the zoning, the CMI zoning district, which this property was rezoned into at the last town meeting. All the requisite parking will be provided. This is not a full utilization of the entire lot, as you can see from the plan. If perhaps Megan would post it up on the screen. There will be further development in either by subdividing off or by further development on the existing lot on the westerly part of the property. But for now, what we're doing is simply the 4-unit apartment building in the existing ex-Yates building. And I've seen the comments that are in the staff report, which we agree with. This is technically part of an old MCD in the past that related to the coffin pit out there, which of course no longer has anything to do with this. So it really has nothing to do with that old MCD, and quite properly would be taken out of it. And as far as the conditions are concerned, as I said, those as set forth in the staff report are perfectly appropriate. We would agree to them.
Great,
I think that's about it, unless you have any questions.
Board members? Yeah, Arthur, is the intention here for employee housing?
It'll be largely employee housing, yes. We don't have specific plans, but it'll primarily be people who will be working in connection with the businesses on we own this lot. The Plumbers Supply building is on the immediately adjacent lot. Then there's another lot to the south of that where there are employee residences. What ultimately may be happening on this lot will be that there will be a building similar to the Plumbers Supply building that will be used by the electrical supply branch of the family businesses. And in that case, it would probably be employees of that. It's also possible that we would put more employee housing, but I think that probably it's going to be the electrical supply building.
Would it be all right? Would it be all right with your client to put to agree to a year-round rental?
Oh, yes, definitely. Year-round occupancy exclusively. No short-term rentals.
Great, thank you. If we could add that.
Definitely not.
Be great. What are you laughing at, Nat?
I remember what we used to ask for 15 years ago, and it wasn't that. That's okay. I just crack up. That's okay. It's all good. Passes and other things. But
Yeah, we're going to finish before 9 tonight. All right, that's the goal.
I'm excited. This is great. Thank you.
Remarkable.
Anyone else from? Nope. Do we have anybody in the public? Meg?
We do not.
All right. What's the board's pleasure?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, motion made by Nat, seconded by Barry. Nat,
Motion to approve.
No,
no, yay, just say yay, Nat.
Aye. Oh, that's right. No, go ahead. Sorry.
That's
Aye.
right. Barry,
aye.
Joe.
Aye.
So I'm gonna put Abby on this.
Yeah.
Activate Abby. Abby, you there? Great. So what's the board's pleasure?
So I'll make a motion to approve with the additional condition of no short-term rentals and owned occupancy. Is that the only one, Megan?
Just year round, I think is.
Yeah.
Is that all you have to do? Okay.
Yeah, it's year round or peak seasonal employee housing is how we typically phrase that.
Technically short-term, but yes, whatever the language has to be for that to be effective. That would be condition 3. And that's it, right? The other 2? Okay, so that's my motion.
Second,
All right, motion made by Nat, seconded by Barry. Nat,
Aye.
Barry,
aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Abby.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Unanimous. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, and we're on to C. David Beaumont, 35 Warren's Landing. I believe this is a covenant lot.
So I don't see Mike Connolly here, so I can just run through it quickly. It's just a typical secondary residential lot. They didn't ask for any additional waivers. It's in lug 2, I believe. So the ground cover wouldn't exceed 4%. I believe both the structures are already existing on the property. So just the standard conditions were suggested here.
Great. Board members, questions? What's your pleasure?
Make a motion, we approve the special permit as we have discussed and it is submitted.
We have to close the public hearing first.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're 100%
We have
correct.
to
God
activate an
forbid.
alternate.
We're all racing ahead of
We need an
ourselves.
alternate on this? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do need an alternate for the public hearing portion, but not the A&R component.
Stephen, you're activated.
All right.
Gotcha.
So let me try to do this. Let's close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Great. Motion made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well.
Quick question, if I may,
Yes.
through you, Mr. Chair. Meg, is there any reason were they not interested in the potential family carve out deed restriction?
We can add that language into the decision. It's allowed by right. It's not a separate waiver that needs to be requested. It's
Okay,
just part of what can be done.
Yeah, just didn't see in the conditions. I didn't know if we needed to. Thank you.
Great. For the merits, gentlemen.
So with that addition, I'll make a motion, we approve the special permit.
I'll second.
Made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So that's unanimous, and then move on to the A&R.
I'll make a motion at this point. We endorse the A&R.
Second.
Great. And I don't need Stephen on this, right? Meg? Okay, so made by Barry, seconded by Nat. Barry,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So that's unanimous. On to another one, another covenant. Thomas Arena, 1 Tacoma Way.
So this covenant lot actually has an issue with the size of the proposed covenant lot. The applicant reached out to me through the course of this meeting and asked that we please continue to September.
Okay.
Make a motion, we continue to September 11th.
Second.
Motion made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Great. Like to open the floor for public comment for items not listed on the agenda. Do we have anyone in the public?
Nobody with their hand raised.
Okay, great. On to other business. Appointing planning board members to crack. I'm thinking Joe, but Abby,
We can have alternates on, right?
Abby, are you, I know
Good.
I've asked you this before. Are you still willing to? Jill?
Yes.
Okay. Barry, you had your hand up.
Yeah, we've had someone on it beforehand. Who was it?
Carl was in this
Carl.
position. He replaced Joe.
And I
Oh,
got
okay,
back, and I got back on CPC to finish up a project. So
right, do we know if Carl's interested in it?
But he's not, and we need a planning board rep.
Yeah.
Carl's resigned as an alternate, Barry.
Oh, well, this I did not know. I'm sorry, that is breaking news at the moment.
Yeah, are you on Takanak now, or are you?
I think he's
No,
on
just
Saturn or Mars.
no, just incredibly busy lately.
Barry, I'd also add, I actually met on Friday with Holly and Mary Longacre. We were doing a thing up for coastal resiliency and historic preservation. So I'd be happy to do it because I could maybe with both.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to have you on it. I just was kind of curious about the background behind it, that's all. But yeah.
This is good.
Great. I
Thank
truly
you.
appreciate it, Abby. I think you'll be great. Do we need to vote on this or?
Yep, so I'll make that motion at this point. We put Abby onto the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee.
I will second that.
Motion
Joe.
made by Barry, seconded by Joe. Barry,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Welcome to crack.
Thanks.
Okay, second item here is my doing, so I apologize. Inclusionary zoning came up as an idea and a concept in the housing summit. Is that correct? And so, and at Housing Nantucket has been trying to push the ball down the road. And so we've started preliminary discussions about some concepts. Really wanted to kind of just bring it to the board here for just a short, quick discussion on feelings, thoughts, and then as we get deeper into this, maybe come back to the board and have you guys give us your feelings on what we've produced. Does that sound right, Megan?
Yes.
Yes. So I apologize, my doing, but what you guys think is important. So I would like to hear it, please.
Mr. Chair, can you just, because I couldn't make that meeting the other day, could you, through either you or Joe or Megan, explain in English what this means, so that we can, so we all understand.
I would let Joe, but he wasn't at the meeting either.
Oh, okay.
I made the first one and you guys didn't show up, so I couldn't make the second one.
No.
They made it.
So the discussion is about when we approve subdivision. So here's just a couple ones that have kicked around.
Yep.
6-lot subdivision. We would ask the developer to create 2 covenant lots within that 6-lot subdivision. And it wouldn't be a choice.
When you say 6 lots, I don't mean to interrupt, Dave.
That doesn't include the covenant lots.
Correct. it means that 2 covenants out of the 6 lots total, that secondary dwellings have to be a covenant on 2 of the 6. That's what that meant, right?
Yes. And this is just an example. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to go about this, and I think that there's a lot of pitfalls surrounding it. I mean, we'll have a lot of 5-lot subdivisions that could have been 6, right? And so I guess the question is there mechanisms that we can tie to subdivisions in zoning that would help us create more housing? And that's really what this discussion is about. And it's about unfortunately or unfortunately helping or having the developer help us with the burden. So
the most recent project that could have fit into this bucket, Mr. Chairman, is the one on Rugged Road on the left.
100%.
And I remember talking about that at the meeting about, can we make covenant lots on these properties? Now, they made the lots right around 20,000 on the dot. And I think that's what you were alluding to a minute ago about a 6 going to a 5. Or maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's what you were kind of saying. How they end up dicing up, depending upon what the zoning is, how big, how oversized they make them, depending upon what their plans are.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think that, another problem is how many more 6-lot subdivisions are we really going to have?
About to say, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
So this is where we're about 10 years late. Nobody would have figured this out 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But what I would look at as part of this idea, I mean, I love the idea of covenant included subdivision somehow, especially now that we have two covenants allowed on an oversized lot in R10 and R20. And also, which leaves room for, theoretically, you'd have the tertiary would be a covenant and the secondary would be a regular secondary part of the primary lot. That's also an option with this. But it has to be in a place where the land is, I don't want to say generational, but like the ones we just started talking about in Wisconsin, where if that was in a different place, they could do a lot. But no one, you're not going to have that in Wisconsin out there. So the other thing is looking at existing subdivisions that are already built, that have gone through sales over and over again, like the Friendship side of Pine Valley. I always say that way, the Friendship side, where you have mid-80s subdivision and finding a way to create housing options in existing subdivisions that have either deed restrictions on them now or other restrictions that may be sunsetting. We've talked about 3M. When 3M gets sued someday, those are big lots that can't get developed with secondary dwellings because they don't have sewer. So their oversized lots are all around 19,000 square feet in R10. And they're slowly trickling to the mainland owners with pools and cabanas because that doesn't count. I mean, that doesn't affect the sewer. But they've dragged water down those roads. Developers have brought it down. It hasn't been done by the Wanna-Comment. It's been done by individuals. So it's bigger than just a new subdivision, Dave, I think. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. And there's not much dirt left that's just going to just suddenly be a 6-lot subdivision.
I agree, but I think inclusionary zoning typically is about new or redeveloped properties.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really about figuring out how to wedge in a covenant lot on the Somerset side or that. I think this is more about new new or redeveloped properties, and how we partner with developers to help create more housing opportunities.
And a covenant is not affordable.
No,
It's
and listen,
expensive.
nothing in the missing middle is affordable, right?
there
It's
isn't.
attainable, but not affordable. So Stephen, I know you have good ideas in that head swimming around.
Sure does. Steve's got a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, he does.
If I may, just a real broad stroke one. I think that I'd categorize these as mandatory and voluntary. And then I'd want to say, let's work out a tree along the lines of things Matt's been discussing. And for new development and existing, because there are probably going to be, like, the form of ownership could be a change under existing, and maybe we would do overlays. You could change and incentivize multiple owner condos of primary, secondary, and tertiary without there being any type of penalty or covenant included, subject to year-round deed restriction. It's very granular very quickly, but the point I'm trying to make is if we break it down into two categories, mandatory and voluntary, one being incentive, mandatory being a requirement to help developers help address issues we have as a community, and the voluntary being to incentivize people to accomplish the same goal. And then there could be some really interesting discussions that would come of that. It might not be like a planning board meeting in and of itself, but it could be like a listening type of a thing, and invite community members and different people. Obviously you, David, and you're working with Ann. So maybe through a venue that the Housing Authority puts on. And then just to kind of close that back to Housing Authority, I think, that gives them perhaps an opportunity to become involved in branching out if they have the resources to help monitor and oversee some of these programs, so they could diversify out of the covenant. So it could be of interest to them too. So, I mean, that's a real broad stroke first brush for me.
No, and I think this is my reasoning to get this on the agenda, is just to kind of get you guys' heads around this and to start thinking about it, and then come back maybe next meeting and see where you've gotten and see what you think. And I like your idea about mandatory and voluntary. I also think that we could also give choices, either you choose this or you choose this, and try to make it a little more flexible for the developers, and hopefully they would embrace that a little more. Joe.
Thanks. No, Dave, that's something we talked about in the first initial meeting, was some way to kind of help incentivize this for the developers some way, because, you brought up eloquently that if you have 6 and they have to do this, they may go to a 5-lot subdivision. But I can see it's a 21 Brewster Road, that's a 5 subdivision lot. But I think if they come back and they show a plan that maybe's down on the alongside of state forest there, I think they may get an extra lot, basically looking at that plan. So they could go to a 6 lot subdivision. And would that be something that works in that favor? So, is there opportunities to do it? Is it something we can, kind of tag along? But I don't see a lot of lots being available, but that's one that just jumped out of me after our meeting with Ann. So we got to make it work for the developer.
I agree. And Cliff Shore's on my list to have that discussion with. I think that he is very smart in that way, and probably could be helpful.
Yeah.
So that's really it. Just an introductory, wrap your head around it. Feel free to send me emails, and we'll get it on a future agenda when we get a little farther down the road.
Real quick, Dave, just a quick follow-up on this. Is this a potential article for town meeting?
It would be a potential article for town meeting.
Okay, and the other.
And the expectation, I believe, from Ann, and I haven't told her that we would, but I think she's hoping that the planning board will put it forward. So
For November.
There's a lot, no, not for November.
No, but that's what she's trying to do, get this on at
April.
town meeting. Yeah.
Okay. And then also another area, Joe,
Is Ann on?
No.
Joe bringing up that Brewster thing makes me laugh. I never knew that Don Allen thing was going on there for all these years. That's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, two other things to look at for this is areas, and again, there's very little left. I have to do some thinking of areas that this could work. But places that are looking for zoning changes still. That's something to think about. And I don't know how we could legally do that. We have to talk to people a lot smarter than we are I don't know what we could tie to that, but that's something. I don't think it's legal to do that. I'm just thinking out loud. That's all. As far as tying zoning, changing to, well, covenants and stuff. I don't think we could do that. The other
zoning, Megan, I think that's illegal.
I don't think it could happen, but I just thought of it. And then the other one is town-owned land and dealing with areas that have sewer, areas that could potentially have sewer that a town-owned that could be creating some type of small lots that could be all deed restricted, etc. But there's a lot of moving parts, and it's a little late for this conversation. But I think, Dave, the best part is, like we just said two tonight, one's an existing dwelling with a family, obviously, and the other one is a family lot without a dwelling. But to incentivize that tertiary covenant through, you're going to have some subsidy through Affordable Housing Trust. And I think that is the enticing piece. It's $1 million to build a modest house now. Whether it's a covenant or whether it's a primary, it doesn't make a difference.
I know the land trust rubs you the wrong way, Nat, but that is the.
I know it's the wrong way as long as we're taxing them. But I think that this fits into that glove, Dave.
Yeah, but yes, it 100% does, and so does deed a deed restriction program. But those are separate. Those are just other tools. We're just trying to get as many tools, and inclusionary zoning is another one. And there's a lot of fears surrounding them. Will they drive up development costs? Most likely. And who pays the price for that? The people we're trying to help. So I'm still not saying that I'm a huge fan of inclusionary zoning, but I'm just walking the dog down the road and see what happens.
We might be able to accomplish it without doing this through the things that you're already working on.
True. And there's some people that say if it gets us 3 units, then it was worth it. So I don't know.
I asked the other day, I think we have 126 covenants.
Yep.
We should 326, but we don't.
Got 128 after tonight.
All right. Well, that's good.
Barry?
So the other thought might be to get there is to determine where you want as a starting point. How many in a subdivision that occurs, what is the minimum threshold? Is it going to be 3 lots, 4 lots, whatever? That's the first part. The second thing would be is once you've determined where you want to set the initial threshold at, let's go to your 6 lot subdivision that's going to happen at this point. So minimum of 3 would require 1 inclusionary unit, let's say. For every additional lot thereafter, you make a determination of when you make a determination of what's happening and then begin to round that number up. So let's say at 4 lots, it's still 1. At 5 lots, it may go to 2, let's say it works out to be 1.5 of the entire thing. It now jumps to 2. See where I'm tracking with this? So that depending upon the bylaw itself would automatically take care of when the trigger points occur at, as opposed to having to specify it.
Oh, 100% agreed. And I think that, you know, what you have to do in 4-lot subdivision may be completely different than what you do in a 6, right? In a 4,
Right, absolutely.
it might just be this, and a 6, it's gonna be something else, and an 8, it may be something completely different.
Absolutely. But I think instead of going to hard numbers, using it as a percentage of the total may actually work better for you. And when you do it as a percentage of the, of what's happening with it, if it's like anytime it's over 0.5 of the entire thing, it's going to trigger another dwelling to happen. It automatically jumps itself to the next round number.
And we have to make sure it doesn't have a punitive feeling to it. And I think that's going to be the trick.
Right. Yep.
It's always going to feel that way. I don't care. People who do inclusionary housing are saints in my book to begin with, because they do it voluntarily out of the goodness of their heart. There's not a major, I don't think there's always major financial incentives to it. Maybe there's a way to take it a step further that if the developer is willing to put in an additional inclusionary housing unit above and beyond that, out of the housing bank that we have available in the town, that we contribute 50% toward it.
Yeah.
There is that money there to be had. And instead of making it feel punitive, it may actually incentivize it by being able to tie into that as well too. So everyone gets a little something for it.
And I'm sure that there could be funds available for subsidization from the Affordable Housing Trust, depending on.
I'm sorry, and that's really what I meant to say, from the affordable housing. Yeah, that's your pot of money that you're doing. But again, try to incentivize it on that level as well too.
Exactly. So
there's a requirement and then there's an incentive.
Well, great.
And Dave, through you to Barry, I kind of like that. Ian came up with a number of 6 lots, but I like that going down to 4, 1. I kind of like that, trigger value that you would have. I think that works better, and you may capture more houses that way. And that
I think we will. And the question is, where do you start the baseline at? Will it be 3 lots? Will it be,
Yeah. I mean, it isn't a 3-lot subdivision could be as simple as one of these housing units need to be deed restricted for year round.
Yeah,
right.
And for a 5 or a 6 lot, you need to create a lot for a house, maybe. I
think the only thing, and this is not to make busy work here, but it would be good for us to understand what's left remaining out there.
Yeah.
That could possibly be subdivided, because we're just floating that number of 6 around.
Yeah.
And at last check when I did it, ain't a lot out there on that level. You know what I'm saying?
Unless we have a sewer and water expansion, we ain't got a whole lot.
Either that, or unless, like we've seen, sometimes people get very clever as well too, and then combine pieces of property to squeeze something else out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we were kind of telling the housing trust or housing in Nantucket, is that is a high bar, and you're not going to get a lot with that. So
exactly. So I'd rather set the bar somewhat lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expectation lower for that bar too.
Right. And set it lower, and then use it so that it's scalable. And then if they're actually having to do something, maybe sweeten the pot a bit further by putting some type of incentive that couples in with funding from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Bonus density.
Yeah, or it can be, it can be any number of different things that you could put in there, but money speaks loud too at times.
Yeah. All right.
So just a thought.
Yeah, listen, and feel free, please, to email me any ideas you have, just so that I can share it with the rest of the group, and we'll readdress this at another meeting soon.
Dave, can I do one thing?
Yes, please.
I see Billy Cassidy and the attendees.
Oh, yeah.
So can we put him on the hot spot?
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Welcome, Mr. Cassidy.
Thank you, sir.
Doesn't pay to be a lurker.
Nope.
It doesn't pay to be a lurker. I have a mouthful of chicken. Listen, there are a couple of neat things coming up that are not on anybody's radar at the moment, but will be fully on your radar in the not too distant future. I think it'll put a smile on everybody's face, and everything that I've just been listening to is quite interesting. If I could make one suggestion, was while you're thinking about this, it may be a big task, but I think that you can target undeveloped areas, or certainly something like the 3M subdivision that Nat is talking about. I think it's pretty easy to paint a future picture. Having said that, I hope that everybody considers this long and hard. And this may sound peculiar, but I really hate the idea of building ourselves out of this issue. We can always build something, but I think there are a couple of other things in the pipeline that are certainly going to help move the needle with our current housing crisis. And all of this is good talk. I just urge caution, but get excited about some other rental properties coming up. Excuse me, I have to finish chewing.
Sorry, Billy. But thank you.
Okay.
Nat, do you want to say something?
No, Billy actually said one thing that I had sort of jotted down is the targeting. There's none left, though. That there's some people out there, generational property owners, that have just dirt, just hanging out, just paying for it in the sewer district. Targeting, I think that's what he meant by that. Targeting someone and saying, "Hey, what do you think about this or that," and that kind of thing. And I think that the existing, the existing second dwellings. I know that this is hard to see, but when we first started this program, most of them were already built. Okay, they weren't like new builds, they were already built. And then when we started the tertiary, what happened? Well, all the studios that were already built became tertiaries and legalized, right? So now we're sort of getting to the end of that potential, and new build is the problem, and the interest rate and how it's devalued the minimum or the maximum value of a tertiary, which of a covenant is, I think, 750 grand thereabouts. So went from 9 something to 7 something, which is impossible to believe, but that's the formula. So the incentivization is the key, Dave. And I know you know that. I'm not telling you something you don't know. And finding the right formula for this to work for people to essentially give up their value. But to go back to what Billy was saying, and to add to that, and this is the biggest piece that I think the public needs to just understand. When there's a house on Tashma Lane pretending it being sold for $3 million or close to it, and it's advertised as Surfside, we got a problem. I never knew Tashma Lane was on Surfside. And Gray Avenue is now Ellen's Way. I mean, I don't know how it happened, but it did, because people want to come here, and locals have been selling their property to off-islanders for years. And here we are with not much left. We have to get more deed restricted, which is what a covenant is in theory. It's a deed restricted property that has to be year round. We have to find a way to get more units so they can't be sold to somebody that doesn't live here. I mean, that's just it. That's the problem we have. It isn't so much
Pick up the ladies.
a housing crisis. We have a ownership crisis. If you don't live here and you own a house, that's it. But if it used to be owned by someone that lives here year round, that's where the problem has been happening. So staving that off is going to be a battle that's going to go on for a long time. But that's where we are. So anything that works needs to happen one way or the other. Billy's eating dinner.
How's that chicken, Billy? Where'd you get it from?
Let the man eat his chicken, please.
Thank you, Barry.
All right. Thanks, Dave, for putting us on.
Yeah, guys.
Thank you.
And in all honesty, like I'm committed to seeing this through. So please forward me any ideas or thoughts, and I'll be harassing you guys in a month about it again. And dude, it's only 6:46.
Good.
Wow.
So I'd entertain a motion before it gets to be 6:50, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Want to check real quick? Okay, that motion made by Barry, seconded by Nat.
Go.
No, Nat made the motion and
Joe
I
second.
think Joe seconded.
Nat made it. Joe seconded it. Nat.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Barry.
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Lovely.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our
Deal.
staff, for being amazing, and the board.
Jeff, and thank you, Abby, for being on crack.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks. We like you. We love you on crack, Abby.
Yes, we love you on crack.
And in
Correct,
one
right.
fell swoop, there went her reputation. Careful,
Bye,
on
everyone.
that.
Bye,
Good
everyone.
night, everyone.
Bye.